Hello, everybody. Welcome to your first Java lesson. Okay, we'll call this lesson 1.1, Basic Java. Essentially, what we're going to do today is show you what you need to know, everything you need to know to get going with Java to write your first Java program. Okay, so we're going to talk about syntax, the syntax of the Java language. We'll talk about how to create simple output, and then also how to write comments, okay, a little bit about errors. Okay, by the end of this, you'll be able to write a Java program. So let's start off by taking a look at a simple Java program. This is basically as simple as we can make it. Now, if you're looking at this thinking that doesn't look so simple, you're right. One of the tricks with learning Java is I can't explain everything to you, all the details, everything that's happening here on day one. Okay, there's actually things in this simple program that we're not going to explain until the second semester. Okay, these are things we'll be kind of continually coming back to as we learn new parts. Okay, for now, we'll just say this is a simple program. We'll go through some of the details, and what it's going to do is output, okay, to my computer screen, to my terminal, welcome to APCSA, which is just this string I have in the program right here. Okay, let's talk about some of these parts now. So the first thing this program does is it creates on line 1 here a Java class. Okay, in Java, all programs start with a class. Okay, classes are the way we're going to take a larger program and break them up into smaller chunks. Okay, on your computer, each class is essentially going to be a different file for that program. Okay, the way you create a class is you'd say public. Talk about what that means later. You'll say class because we're making a class, and then you'll give it a name. All right, so I'm going to call this class AP Comp Sci. All right, so next thing my program has is something called the main method. All right, all Java programs start execution with the main method. So if my program is broken up into several different classes with different code in each of those classes, the computer needs to know where does this program start? Well, it's always going to start at the main method. And then the main method you can think of as kind of the master method that is going to call code and different pieces from those other classes. Okay, when I say method, I'm essentially talking about what we called last year a function. And just to be technical, a function is a procedure. Okay, now technical definition, a procedure is a named group of programming codes. Okay, a function is just a procedure with an output or with a return value. And then a method is a function associated to an object. Okay, Java is an object-oriented programming language, which means we're always just going to say method. Okay, so when I say a method, we're talking about the same thing as a function or procedure. Since we're object-oriented, we'll just say method. Okay, so here's my main method. Method signature, we're not going to talk about all this, but this will be what you type for every Java program at the beginning when you want to get it running. Public, static, void, main is the method name, then in parentheses, string, braces, args. We'll be explaining all those different parts throughout the year, okay, but that's your method signature. All right, next syntax piece we'll talk about are the braces. Okay, notice that my class is contained within a set of open and closed braces here. Same thing with my method. Everything within the method is contained within an open and a closed brace. Okay, every class and every method must have both an open and a closed brace to start it and end it. And the next thing we'll talk about is this semicolon here. Okay, you must put a semicolon at the end of all Java program statements. So notice there's no semicolon at the end of my class definition. There's no semicolon at the end of my method signature. Those aren't actually telling the computer what to do something. Okay, this programming statement here, this print statement, is actually telling me to do something. Okay, so that's why I have the semicolon there. The semicolon will help the computer know where one statement ends and the next one begins. And then last thing we'll talk about with this simple program is indentation. Now this is something that technically I don't need to do. I could actually type this entire program on a single big ugly line and the computer, Java, wouldn't care less either way. Okay, but indentation is going to be something you want to do to make your program easier for both you and myself to read. And typically what we do is we indent 3 spaces or 1 tab basically for every level we go down. So everything within my AP Comp Sci class will be indented 3 spaces. And then everything within each method will be indented 3 spaces or 1 tab. And if I had multiple programming statements here, I'd keep them all on the same level. Again, this is going to be a convention you'll follow just to make things more readable and easier to work with. Okay, both for you, the student, and then anybody else using your code. All right, so next thing I want to do is talk about this statement here, which actually gives me my output. Again, there's a lot going on. We won't explain everything here, but for now, we'll just say that this big ugly line prints what I have in quotes. Let's talk about how that works now. So the 2 main output commands we're going to use are print and println, standing for print line. And the difference between the two is that we'll say that just the print statement will print X and then stay on the current line, whereas the println will print X and then move down to the next line. Okay, so they both print, and the difference will be, do we want to stay on the same line and keep printing on that line, or do we want to move to the next? So as far as explaining an entire print statement for you here, we have system. Anytime in Java we refer to your system, essentially we're referring to your computer. We want your computer to do something. Okay, we have a reference to parts of your computer. Okay, dot out is the output. And then here we have the actual command, print. I want to print what's in quotes, okay, the string literal, the string, okay, CS rocks. And when I run this simple command, if it was within a Java class, which would be in a main method or some other type of method, it would just print, okay, CS rocks. Again, I can't explain everything that's happening here, and really you're not going to think about everything that's happening here. Essentially, you're just going to get really good at writing system.out.print what you want to print, and we'll explain the details later, but you don't need to know them all to make programs run. Okay, so let's take a look at the difference again between prints and printlns. Okay, here I have 2 programming statements which both have the print command, and I have the println commands in these bottom ones. And what's the difference going to be? Well, the first one I've got 2 commands, print line 1, print line 2. Since those are both just prints, I'm going to get line 1, line 2 on the same line of code. Okay, the print statement prints and then stays on the same line. Okay, it doesn't leave any spaces or anything like that. There'll be situations where I want to do that. Okay, that doesn't really make sense for this example. This example, I'd say I'd want to use the printlns, print line 1 on line 1, line 2 on line 2, and that's exactly what this one's going to do. Okay, after I print line 1, it will move to the next line. After I print line 2, it would move to the next line. So this program I have here would have my cursor on the next line now, ready to go to do some more printing. All right, we've got just a few more details we're going to talk about to add to our simple programs. Okay, the first one's going to be the idea of an escape sequence. Okay, now what an escape sequence is a way to signal Java that we want an alternative interpretation of a character. What do I mean by that? Well, n is a character. If I said system.out.print n, Java would print an n. When I add this / to the front of it, that's kind of my signaler for an escape sequence. It's not just going to print an n, it's going to do something else. /n is going to move my terminal to the next line. Okay, this is something we did the same thing with in JavaScript last year. Okay, why do we need stuff like this? Why can't I just use a print line to move to the next line? Well, there might be situations where it's easier to do it all within one print statement. Okay, let's say I want to add a quote to what I'm printing. So if we look at this third escape sequence here, now if I put a quote in my string, Java's going to think that the string's over and that's what to print. Okay, so if I want to actually include a quote printed in that string, I need to use my escape sequence character, the / quote. Okay, now this one's a little weird. If I want to actually print a slash, I need to go // The first one says an escape sequence is coming. Second one is actually what I want to print. Okay, same idea. If I want a single quote, we'll go /quote. Okay, if I want to add a tab to my statement, okay, so 3 spaces, we'll go /t. All right, so let's take a look at an example of using some escape sequences. So system.out.print this string literal. And what's this going to print? It's going to print he. And then I get a // that signals escape sequence, followed by a second // Those two in a row are going to give me a single // Okay, so we'll have a he/she. So he, she is a /n. Remember, that moves me to a new line. So what I have here is a way to write 2 lines within a single print statement. And then this /quote will print the double quote. If I didn't have this slash here, what Java would think is that my string ends here. It would print this, so it didn't include this stuff here. And then I'll go /quote again for the second quote. Okay, so let's see what this actually prints. Okay, he, she is a kind of quotes hacker. All right, I need these / quotes to actually get the quotes around the hacker without actually ending the string early and actually printing those quotes there. It's a little tricky. We've got a few exercises to kind of make sure you understand that, but not too bad. You'll get used to them. Stuff we'll be using all year long. All right, let's talk a little more about the way Java outputs, and specifically let's talk about concatenating, technically, this plus, okay, adding a plus to our print statements. Notice I've got 3 different statements. They all say 7 + 8 + 9. But in my first statement, 7, 8, 9, I don't have quotes around them. So those aren't strings. Those are actually stored in Java as integers. Whereas in 2, I have the number 7 plus the string 8 plus the number 9. And in 3, I have the number 7 plus the number 8 plus the string 9. And let's take a look at what happens with each of these. Okay, in the first case, 7 + 8 + 9, Java's just going to add those together. 7 + 8 + 9 is 24, and it's going to print the result of that, 24. Pretty straightforward. Okay, in the second case, let's take a look at what happens. When I print that, I get 7, 8, 9. What happened here? Well, Java printed the 7, and then it said plus. Now, this isn't the number 8. This is the string 8. So since this is a string, it's not a number. Rather than actually adding these, it's going to concatenate them, just put these 2 strings together. And then in Java, once I do string addition rather than number addition, so concatenation, I'm just going to concatenate everything else. So it's just going to add the 9 to that string here. Okay, this is where it gets a little bit tricky. What are we going to get here? Well, what Java did this time is it said we have a 7 plus an 8. These are both numbers. We'll add them together. That's where the 15 is coming from. And then it adds in the string 9, so it just concatenates the 9 to that. So essentially what you're seeing here is that Java's going to do the actual math until it hits a string, and then from there on out, it's just going to do concatenation, kind of adding those numbers to the string. Again, a little bit tricky. We've got a few different examples. They're going to help you really see what's going on with those. All right, next thing we'll talk about quick are comments. Okay, comments are essentially a way to add some explanation or some detail to your code that's not going to affect the way the computer actually runs it out. Okay, so you'll use comments to communicate to yourself, leave yourself notes, or communicate to other programmers. We'll also show you how to use comments as kind of a way to build programs and take them step by step. We'll have 2 different ways to do comments. Okay, like with JavaScript, we can do 2 in a row backslashes. Okay, that'll be for a single line comment. So when I do 2 backslashes, we can say this is a comment. The computer does nothing. Okay, this isn't going to affect the way it runs. And we also have a block comment where everything we want in that comment is sandwiched between a slash and a star. So in this case, I have a multiple line comment. Okay, this is a block comment. Again, the computer does nothing. everything I have, whether it's 2 lines or 3 or 4 or an entire paragraph between these slashes and stars, won't get run. Java ignores it. It's a way to communicate about your program, though. And then last thing we'll talk about are some different errors. We'll get more into this when we actually have a Java compiler or a kind of IDE set up to run some programs and show you some different stuff. But there's essentially 2 types of errors in Java. The first one happens when you have a syntax error. Okay, they occur when you type something in wrong, okay, which calls a compile time error, meaning that when I go to compile my program, the program won't compile. It's going to say there's something wrong with it. Okay, so for example, if I'm missing a semicolon, okay, we'll have a compile time error. Okay, if I forgot to capitalize the S at the beginning of system, that's going to be a compile time error, and the computer won't actually compile your code. And then the last one's a runtime error. Okay, runtime errors occur when something goes wrong while the program is running. So I compile that program. Java says, looks like it's okay, but it's not going to anticipate every possible error that could occur. So a common one we'll see is an out-of-bounds exception, okay, or an out-of-bounds error. Just basically what's happening here is I'm making a string called runtime error, or storing the literal runtime error. If I try to print a substring from 5 to 21, if these are talking about the 21st character essentially, there's not 21 characters in this string, so we get an error while it runs. Again, Java won't catch this error while it compiles, but it will say something's wrong when it's running. All right, we just threw a lot at you there. Now, if that seems a little overwhelming, that's okay. We're going to be using basically the stuff I showed you here every day throughout the whole semester. Okay, so don't worry about memorizing it. You'll get it. You're going to be using it all the time. From here, go start going to town on the homework on Moodle. That's going to give you some simple practice, asking, okay, what would stuff print? Okay, what would the correct syntax be? As well as some simple programs to write. Okay, so work on some programs, crank some code. We'll see you folks later.